The scene in Exodus chapter 17 is a historical event that occurred in the battle against the Amalekites during the 40-year journey of the Israelites in the wilderness. Let's read verse 8. The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands." So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on one side, one on the other, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. Joshua took on the role of going to the battlefield to fight against the Amalekites. While Joshua was leading and commanding the army of Israel in the battle, Moses went up on the mountain and looked down at the battlefield. When Moses held up his hands, the Israelites prevailed. But when he lowered his hands, no matter how advantageous the position of the Israelites was, they would immediately start losing. Therefore, the control box that could determine the victory or defeat of the battle was not Joshua, but Moses. In addition to this, what does the Bible teach us about Moses? The realization about Moses is ultimately revealed to us in the Bible, as seen in Acts chapter 3, that Moses represents Jesus. Then, isn't our gospel the same? God created the visible and invisible world when creating the heavens and the earth. We are currently carrying out gospel work in the visible world. But the outcome of the gospel can be good or bad, depending on what God does in the invisible world. If God lifts up his arm, our gospel will prosper. Isn't that right? However, what would happen if he were to lower his arms? Regardless of the amount of effort exerted, the number of participants involved, and the dedicated work of knowledgeable experts, the outcome of the gospel will always be a failure if God does not help us in the invisible world. We can understand that the issue does not lie in the visible world, but ultimately depends on God in the invisible world. Then how should we live our life of faith from now on? Walking the path of faith diligently on this earth is a good thing. However, the faith that does not acknowledge God in the invisible world will yield no results. Therefore, when God is moved, our gospel can be fulfilled. If we carry out the gospel that only satisfies oneself and ends with one's own happiness without moving God's heart, then that gospel cannot achieve any results. Even if Joshua was an exceptional general with outstanding martial skills, and even if the Israelite army consisted entirely of warriors, each worth 100 men, they could not be the outstanding armies as long as Moses' arms were down. When we carefully examine all this, we can realize that through the Bible, we need to understand the relationship between the invisible and the visible world. Even with just this single scene recorded in Exodus chapter 17, it is more than enough for us to fully understand why we must pray to God, offer our wishes, and dedicate our earnestness to Him.